This is arguably, I mean, we know the disturbing details of what happened in Southport, and we don't need to go over the horror of that really again. The families were spared some of the further detail. They would have, of course, been aware, but to hear the clinical evidence in a clinical setting of a courtroom would have been horrendous for the families. They were spared that after a guilty plea. But I want to take you back to just after the 29th of July, when 3 girls were murdered and others, 10 attempted murders, others horribly injured. And of course, everybody that was there that day, their lives changed for good. And of course, what followed the very next day were the Southport Riots, and we know what happened from there. Later that day, the police said they'd arrested a 17-year-old from the village nearby. They were not treating the incident as terror-related, and that's kind of where one of the problems began, along with social media. And if you remember at the time, the biggest news on social media was an invented name of somebody, which I think I'm right in saying was just a made-up Arabic phrase, but that was the name that went around the world to the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people going, this is... And the other bit of misinformation was that this is a person that crossed the channel recently on a boat. And none of that was true. The riots took place. The police had arrested a 17-year-old. Almost immediately after the attack, social media falsely speculated the suspect was an asylum seeker who'd arrived back in 2023. There was also unfounded rumours that he was a Muslim. In fact, it was established at the time that he was born in Wales to Rwandan parents. Police urged the public not to spread unconfirmed speculation and false information. And of course, the following evening, just after people had attended a vigil for the victims, I mean, this was, you know, if you ever wanted an example of how little those people who rioted knew and felt and how stupid they were, among other things, then there it is, right after the vigil, while a postcode away, people were remembering 3 little girls who'd been killed and others seriously injured. Brutal violence broke out, mostly near a local mosque. There were bricks, bottles, missiles, all sorts of other things. 27 police officers were taken to hospital. This is the same group of people, by the way, responsible, that got very animated when they thought police officers had got injured in an airport, had a very different view when they were smashing bottles in their face and goodness knows what. None of those people, I think most people, whether you're on the left or the right, would support the fact they do not represent you. If you're torching cars, if you're, and latterly we know elsewhere, there were cases where people were stuck in hotels, things were set on fire, vandalism. It was horrendous. It was horrendous what happened, and we're aware of the details. There were other people on the sidelines, however, who kind of had a sort of a tacit sympathy with at least the outrage of, is there something we're not being told here? And that's the group of people that were written off as mad right-wingers, by the way, by this government. Keir Starmer couldn't stop saying it enough. I can buy into the people who initially caused riots and stuck 27 cops in hospital. I understand that. You know, these are people that had horrendous criminal records, half of them. They were not good people. They didn't really know what they were fighting for. Fancied a scrap. Yeah, let's have a scrap. Yeah, look, it's a bloody foreigner as a response of blah, blah, blah. We know all of that. But the void, if there was a void, appears to be that Keir Starmer or somebody should have made an announcement to quash what was happening. And I've thought about this a lot because, I mean, the first point of call is I don't really want my Prime Minister getting too involved in court cases. I don't want him in, that's meant to be a separate thing, right, from Parliament to the judiciary. Of course, there's something in the Venn diagram, but asking the leader of your country to make comments on a potential court case as it was there, I'm not sure that's the way to go. Now, you could argue, well, this was an extreme situation. You know, clearly there was an attack. It could have been terror-related. In the event, the person was not charged with terror-based killings. He was charged with other terror offences. So there's that. But what could or should Keir Starmer have said that would have made the blind bit of difference. I think that's the bit, absolutely genuinely, many stories we've covered over the years, I'm properly perplexed by that, and also stand to be educated on that, because personally I can't really see what Starmer could have said if he were to get involved that would have made any difference to the hundreds of people that broke out in violence in Southport the very next day. I don't know, was he meant to say the man's not an asylum seeker and he's not a Muslim? Would that people have then gone, all right, OK, so we're OK to riot then? Yeah, we're legitimately rioting because we've got other reasons to riot. Or would they have stopped rioting? I mean, what is it people wanted out of that? Because the one thing we have to protect, and bearing in mind, you have to remember we've got a Prime Minister that is just not very good at politics. I think we can all agree on that. He might feel he's on safe soil when he starts talking about the law, but as a politician, he's not that great. And there's countless examples of that. I don't need to educate you on why Keir Starmer isn't very good. I think we can all see that. But on this specific point, what was he supposed to do that he didn't do?